Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy, the Strongest Wizard, and today we're back with an OP09 decklist profile, and you have seen it, and you have clicked the thumbnail. You know what's about to go down. I have a very spicy decklist to show y'all, and honestly, guys, I am just so excited that green is finally back. We haven't had a green deck, I don't know in how long. If you're willing to cope, Uta, or even before that, it feels like Start a Kid. And if you're saying to yourself, Wizard, you forgot about Bonnie. That's like our green savior. No, it is not. That is not a green deck. It doesn't feel like a green deck to me. It plays like a Nell. It's so, like, you don't even interact with your opponent. It just feels so lackluster sometimes, and it gets me so upset. I just really miss green, y'all. I just miss the old green. Anyways, but regardless, do not worry. The Wizard is here to help y'all out. I'm here to cope. I mean, bring you a very good Kinemon tier 1.5 deck list. So, if you guys don't know exactly what Kinemon does, because it's been so long, like who even remembers what Kinemon does? It's activate main once per turn. If you have one or less characters on the board, the next Land of Wano character that costs 3 or more is reduced by 1 cost. So essentially, you can cheat out some really cool characters, and you can do a couple really cool tricks with that as well. So I'm going to be going over my matchups just a little bit, as well as just kind of show the deck and kind of the idea what you want to go for. And it's a ton of fun. Don't expect to be the a tier Dofi deck at all. I'm not saying any of that really good stuff. So anyways, let's dive in. All right, it's time to go over the deck list. Now, I do have a little bit of glare on this section of the mat, so I won't really play much stuff there. So just so you guys know, and if you guys, I know I've already shown the card itself already, but there's Kinemon. Honestly, in the very beginning of this card, of its existence, I really hated it. I had a whole campaign called Kinemon Sucks, but honestly, there's a couple of cards in here that really changed my mind, and it's actually really good in this meta. So. We have 4 copies of Otama starting things off here. This card is fantastic. It's a 1 cost, 0 power, and you get to search the top 5 for a Land of Wano. It unfortunately cannot search itself, but you can search the other Land of Wano searcher, which we do have here, and that is 4 copies of Momonosuke. Momonosuke is fantastic. I think Momo's so good, being able to search for itself. It essentially is the Bonnie searcher of the deck. Acts like a blocker, since you have, you rested, your opponent just can't ignore it, and if they do, they just get severely punished by doing so, right? So really good here. 4 copies of that. It has 1k counter as well. Next card is we have 3 copies of Scratchman Apu, the EBO1 version. It has an on-play ability that you get to rest a 2 cost or lower character on your opponent's side of the board. This is quite nice if you're trying to get, rest a like a law blocker or something like that. But for the most part, it's mainly a character that you just use for counter. Honestly, I would be running 4. But I legitimately don't have any EBO1, so instead we're running a single copy of Baby 5. What's really nice about Baby 5 is that if you're in if you need some Dawn active at the end of your turn, you can play her at the end of your turn. She gets to unrest 2 Dawn. Unfortunately, I'm not running any event cards that require 2 Dawn, only 1 Dawn, so legitimately no real reason why to play this card, unless you're trying to psych out your opponent, I guess, possibly. But for the most part, this should be a 4th copy of Scratchman Apu. I legit just don't have them. Gonna go ahead and put the single copy there. Next 3 cost character that we have is also another 2k counter character that is a bit more dual purpose. It's at 4 copies of Izo, 2k counter character, like I did mention before, 3000 power. They can swing, which is quite nice. But this ability has an on play where you get to rest a 4 cost or lower character, which is quite nice. Going for game, you can rest cards like Rebecca and a lot of the blockers that currently are in the meta. Obviously like Boa Hancock and things like that. So really good to go for game as well as controlling the board. Next 3 cost character, we're getting into some kind of fun here, is we have 4 copies of Okiku. Now, if you guys don't know exactly what this character does, let me go ahead and read it for you. It's a 3 cost character. It has no counter. It's 5000 power, but with 1 Dawn attached to this card, and when attacking, once per turn, you can rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So you are swinging 6k into your opponent, and you get to rest a 5 cost or lower cards like Sabo and things like that, which is really good. Just super fantastic card, really great for control against Dofi and a lot of other decks. Being able to play this technically on turn 1 going second is really good, because if we forgot exactly what Kinemon's ability is, if we have 1 or less characters on our side of the board and we get to reduce 1 cost, we're able to cheat out a 3-cost character turn 1 going second, which is really good. Just having a 5k body turn 1, just to be like, okay, I have this threatening piece on the board. Either you have to answer it, or whatever you're gonna play on your turn 2, I'm just gonna go ahead and just rest and just control. I can just KO it. Legitimately an insanely good card. The next card that we're going to be going over is another card that is the backbone of this deck. Honestly, the main reason why I'm playing this deck, the only reason why I think this deck only has some legs, and that is 4 copies of Hiyori. So if you guys don't know what Hiyori does, Hiyori is a 4-cost, 0 power, 1k counter character, Land of Wano, of course. What this card really does, it's really nice, is activate main once per turn. Well, actually activate main. You may trash this character into the trash. You may trash this character and play up to a 5-cost or lower Land of Wano character from your hand, and then you get to draw a card. This card has so much synergy with a ton of the deck, like an insanely good amount of variety of targets. So technically speaking, right, if we have our leader ability, if we are going first on turn 2, we have 3 Dawn. On our 3 Dawn turn 2 turn, we use Kinemon's ability, we play out Hiyori for 3 costs, we activate Hiyori's ability, and we play a 5-cost character turn 2. Okay. We played a 5-cost character on turn 2 with 3 Dawn open, and we drew a card. So it replaces itself and plays the 5 cost from our hand for free. Well, for 3, I'm sorry. So we're literally cheating 2 Dawn. Insane. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Wizard, 5-cost Land of Wano characters, they're no good. There's none. What are we doing here? Why did I click this video? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Starting things off here with one of our primary targets that we have. Now, this is a bit of a kind of like a low roll situation, but we have 4 copies of Ryuma. Now, Ryuma has no counter, it's 6,000 power, and this character on play says that you get to KO a rested 4-cost or lower character on your opponent's side of the board. So pretty good. Being able to control your opponent's board. Now, this wouldn't be my first target that I'm going for Hiyori, but it is quite nice to just mention, just because that is a possibility, right? So really cool to have that option. I think this card does really good against Dofi. I think it does really good against purple as well, especially like purple black Luffy for that 3-cost Zoro. Zoro's so annoying sometimes, but that card really does a lot of work against it. Yeah, really good nonetheless. So very good card. It's searchable. You can play off Hiyori. Worst case scenario, you can still play on turn 2 going first, which is kind of cool. You won't really need to, since your opponent probably won't have a rested character, but regardless, still really cool to have that possibility. And what's really nice about his ability too is that that on play ability also activates on KO. So if your opponent KOs it with a, I don't know, let's just say with their very own Ryuma, right? They swing into your Ryuma. Well, technically you guys trade. So he takes a body with him when he dies, as long as it's rested. So whatever it's attacking, it actually gets KOs. So what they have to do is either they have to attack with a character larger than 4 cost, or they attack with their leader. You can easily play around this card. It's not like an insanely great card, but regardless, it's a really cool tool to have in your arsenal. Next card here is we have 4 copies of a 5-cost character, and that's Mountain God. This thing is a tank, literally, physically, emotionally. It's all there. It's 5 costs, 7,000 power, 1k counter. It's a vanilla. Turn 2, 3 Dawn up, you slap that bad boy on the board. Your opponent now has to deal with a 7k body every single turn for the rest of the game. Good luck getting rid of this turn 2 with 4 Dawn. It's actually very difficult. Unless you are playing Raw Blue Cheat, which, wink wink, is supposed to be less in the meta right now, you should be perfectly fine. So I really think this card is a fantastic. Now, it is still not my #1 pick with Hiyori, but it is a great pick nonetheless. So really, really good here. 4 copies of that, like I did mention before. Mountain God. Now, we have the prime target right here. The card that probably annoys people the most when I play on Sim and in real life, and I absolutely love it, man. They back. They are back. 4 copies of 5 cost, 5,000 power Yamato 1k counter. And if you guys do not know what this card does, well, you better find out real fast. It has a double attack. Off rip, don't have to attach any Dawn to it. It just has double attack. And what's really nice, it has Banish. So if this connects against your opponent, as if this character attacks your opponent with 9k, they're either going to lose 2 cards out of their life that don't get added to their hand, or they're going to lose 3 cards out of their hand. So they really have to choose here. This card is literally gives people nightmares. People play around this card so much. Like I'm like, okay, I know the card's really good, but you don't have to be that scared of this card. And that's kind of a double-edged sword with this card. I think a lot of people that play this deck like to kind of think to themselves, oh, I have to play Yamato. If I don't see Yamato, it loses. I have to protect Yamato with everything in my life, in my hand, because I cannot let the card that literally takes me games, I can't let it go. Sometimes you can't, but sometimes 99% of the time you can. It's not your only win con. You have other characters that are really good in this deck. I think a lot of people sleep on the power of green and what it can do. Being able to rest, being able to be aggressive, and more importantly, being able to control the board. Speaking of control, we have 4 copies of the GOAT, Hody Jones. No, not the leader, the character. This character is really good. If you have a Yamato up, you can rest 2 characters. It's a very expensive ease up, but it rests literally anything. And if you just want to apply more pressure, since you've been able to kind of play out Momonosuke's and play out other characters on the board that are vital threats, your opponent is not going for your life. They're going for the characters on the board. So that is the main reason why when Hody comes on the board, he gains just so much value. So we run 4 copies of him. You always want to see this card. Sometimes I feel like I lose if I don't see this card. Definitely more of a thing with him than it is for Yamato, for sure. Next card here is we have a fairly newish card. That's 3 copies of Shanks. Shanks is just a really great equalizer for the deck, helping you able to kind of like catch up on a lot of matchups. Your opponent plays 10 cost Shanks. Your opponent plays Gold B Roger. You literally slap this down the board and say, go bye-bye, go to sleep. Yeah, it just KOs over. On play KOs anything that's arrested. It's only 1 character, but it's really, really good. Card is very, very difficult to deal with unless you are playing Rob Lucci. I hate that deck. Rob Lucci is too good. Next card we have 4 copies of Dofi. Now, Dofi is another card that really kind of brings you back to life. I know what you guys are thinking. This is a Kinemon deck. Why were you playing Dofi? Well, Dofi is just really that good, honestly. Having the access to have that card, being able to stun lock your entire board, we have to make sure we keep our life nice and healthy. And we've gone through most of the deck here, and you have to realize, what are we missing? We are missing blockers. Well, we're not. We don't run blockers literally at all. So we legitimately don't run blockers at all. So this deck is kind of all gas, no breaks, literally no defense. I'm just twin sorting it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going all in. And yes, I'm going to be the only person, I'm pretty sure, to make a OP09 Kinemon deck list. Call it copium, call me believe, but we still have a couple more cards to show you guys. We have 1 copy. We have 1 copy of the 0 cost event card. It's not searchable. Obviously, we use it to pitch a card out of our hand to give 3k counter. We do, unfortunately, run kind of a lot of bricks. We run 4 copies of Okiku, 4 copies of Dofi, 3 copies of Shanks, 4 copies of Hody, and 4 copies of Ryuma. If you wanted to add more of these cards, I totally understand. I right before this, I was still at 1. I could go up to 2. What I would probably cut, I think depending on the meta, I might cut out 1 Okiku or maybe 1 Shanks. Shanks is just so really, it's just Shanks is just so good, man. It's a really good card, especially leaving one Dawn up. Speaking of one Dawn, we have our last card, and that is 2 copies of Paradise Waterfall. A lot of people don't know what this does. It's been a long time, but Paradise Waterfall is a Land of Wano card, so which is really cool. It's a searchable Land of Wano card. It's 1 cost. It has counter, which you give it to one of your characters or your leader, plus 2k power, and then you get to unrest any rested character on your side of the board. That's really good. This is really good because oftentimes people like to go 7k into your Yamato, which is mainly the main threat, or one of your other characters, and you can actually just kind of protect it a little bit. And the trigger also is kind of good. It's able to rest a 4-cost body, a blocker, things like that, or a character just to control on the board. It's quite nice, honestly. I always want to see this card. This card's really good. So that is the deck list there, and yeah, there you have it. Now I will have to say, speaking over some matchups that I know of, I have been testing a lot of games out, including not just One Piece but other ones. Shout out to the Gundam TCG. Did a recap video on that, shameless plug. So if you're interested in that, check out that video on my channel. But speaking about matchups, I think I'm gonna go ahead and show a matchup chart that I believe is correct. One that I've tested with. I was testing extremely hard with this deck for a good amount of time, and then I just kind of stopped just because I got busy with other things. So unfortunately, I had to stop my testing. But it honestly felt really good into everything except for Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci is just menacing, man. Really unfortunate matchup. I tried taking this deck in 8.5 and I just ran into 3 Luccis and I just lost all 3. Brook and Ice Age is a really good card, but regardless, give this deck a shot. I think this deck is a lot of fun. I don't think it's Dofi. Don't come thinking, oh my god, you're selling a pipe dream, and I'm like, okay, well, it might be a dream, but one that I have close to my heart. But I think this deck is actually pretty good. I think this deck has legs to stand on. I think this list is not perfect. I think it's a great jumping point that you can have. But honestly, majority of the deck is pretty solid. Things that could probably cut out or change: Paradise, maybe tweak the 4-cost Ryuma, like I said before. The top end you can kind of change. I know there is a build that I was thinking about running. I know Jackson was kind of theorizing a little bit with me. Was the 8-cost Kid. 8-cost Kid is definitely possible. You would have to just change a couple of cards around. Obviously, 8-cost Kid does really good against Dofi, but in my testing, I haven't had any issues with Dofi. I'm not saying I can just slay every Dofi I see, but I think the matchup is actually quite good for Kinemon. So thank you guys so much for checking out this channel as well as this video. I really do appreciate it. And stay tuned because I have a ton of new OP09 content coming out soon. See ya!